And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been, I believe, just watching recently, but Mary Beth could be throwing me for a loop. I'm Terry.
I'm Mary Beth. It is just watching this time. I didn't throw the book in yet because I didn't finish it.
Oh, no. What are we talking about? I'm also reading. Fucking hell. Anyway.
This week,
Wow.
we're chatting about queer time loops, a jaunt back to the aughts, teen sex comedies, interesting, queer folk horror, A Nightmare at Sea, and the only Marvel thing that Mary Beth cares about.
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, and pretty much the same with me. I'm very excited to hear. But let's start with queer time loops.
So I tweeted about this. This is the new Hulu movie Jagged Mind.
Okay.
That hit Hulu, I believe, last week. It's directed by Kelly Colley, and she's made a couple like dramas before and documentaries, but this is her first kind of foray into genre. And it's another one of the feature films that's based on one of the bite-sized short, like Hulu-ween, like bite-sized shorts, and was developed into a feature. And honestly, I think people are sleeping on these a little bit. I'm gonna just like step out and say that because these movies are being directed by like queer women and doing some really interesting stuff. So Jagged Mind is the latest one, but there was also Clock, the Diana Agron movie. There's Appendage that's coming out. Matriarch was pretty decent. So I think just overall, I think they're doing some really cool stuff, and I think they're being kind of ignored. Which is a bummer because I think Jagged Mind is one of the best ones they've done so far.
Okay.
So Jagged Mind, it takes place in Little Haiti in Miami, and it follows this young woman who is having these weird blackouts. And her mom has similar issues, and she has like early onset dementia, so she's really worried that she has the same thing. And she's trying to deal with this but she works in an art gallery with her toxic ex, which is like, always a good way to do things.
Yeah.
Her name is Billy. Sorry. Billy, played by Maisie Richardson Sellers, and she's really incredible in this. And meanwhile, she meets this woman named Alex, played by Shannon Woodward, who we've seen in Westworld. They start a relationship. And the blackouts keep continuing, and Billy's getting freaked out, but she's also having these really weird nightmares and all this stuff. And then she kind of finally comes to realize that there's something going on with Alex, and Alex is doing some very interesting stuff to keep them together. It is one of the better depictions of interpersonal / like relationship domestic violence, like between two partners. It's heavy. It's not.
It sounds like it.
It's pretty heavy because it's the first time I've ever seen time looping kind of used like this before. I feel like time loop films are usually kind of like have less of like a very human root cause, and it's more of like existential, and it's used in a very particular way. I feel like time loops are used of like, oh, you're stuck and don't know how to get out, and there isn't like a way out. But here, there's a person doing that to somebody and using time loops as an abuse tactic. And it's really good. And again, like, it's not going to be for everybody because of the subject matter, but I think it's a really interesting way to look at this. And it's not like the most groundbreaking, but I also think we haven't seen a queer movie like this that handles like, we've seen a couple movies like What Keeps You Alive, and like, but that's all from a guy's perspective with like a lesbian couple. Here it's from a female perspective. I think it's a queer female perspective in terms of looking at like domestic violence in a really interesting way and putting the horror spin on it in a really interesting way. So it's like, I liked it, but I don't want to watch it again because it was like really well done. But again, like, it's something we don't see tackled in such a unique way and kind of looked at from this perspective, like kind of using this angle. So if that's like something you might be interested in watching, it's on Hulu now.
Cool. And as Tony said in chat that Shannon Woodward also played Dina in The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh, that's right. That is right. But yeah, so I highly recommend. And it also uses the idea of voodoo in a really interesting way that is not how we ever see it, because the director has a background. She's a Black woman, and she has done a lot of research about Haiti and like using Haitian like influences in her films. And so in this one, she used Haitian beliefs, but like in a positive way, not in like a scary witch doctor kind of way that we typically see it. So it's just operating on some really interesting levels in terms of pushing boundaries of how things are depicted in horror. And I think it should be getting a lot more attention for what it's doing and the conversations it's trying to have.
Yeah, and I see on her IMDb page that she has a bachelor's degree in anthropology with the focus in archaeology. So, like, that
yeah,
kind of
it's
sense.
super cool. Yeah. So she's like, and again, like she did a lot of documentary work before. So there's like this really kind of like anthropological point of view with everything, but which I love though, which I think is actually really important. I interviewed her and didn't get to ask this question, but I think like having like a sociology / anthropological background is really helpful in making horror films if that somehow is like what ends up happening, because I feel like you have like a really interesting perspective on the world and behavior, but then also can bring like the specific cultures and everything you study and breathe a new life into something that we don't usually see. So that's definitely on display here with her work with Kelly Colley. And I want her to make more horror movies. I think what she did was really cool. We're getting weird, messy, chaotic, evil queers on places like Hulu. I mean, I have to celebrate it. You know what I mean? Like, I have to give it a shout out and I have to love it. And the best thing about this movie by far is that this isn't like they're lesbians. It's mostly like it's completely treated like normal. And there's no like trauma of coming out. There's no like they're just women living like just sapphic people.
It sounds like the horror doesn't come from queer trauma.
Exactly. Like there's queer trauma happening, but it's not like because they're queer. Yeah. And then also it's all women in the movie. There's like one or two like minor male characters, but all of the main characters are women. It's like very femme. So
hell yeah.
And the lead is black. It's just great. It's just checking a lot of boxes. Just doing some cool stuff. So check it out. Once again, Jagged Mind. I'm trying to get more people to watch it because, again, this is one of these movies that I think is like a sleeper hit and people just aren't going to see it. And like maybe I'm overhyping it, but I just, it's cool art that's happening that feels different from a lot of things that we're seeing. And I watch so much shit. So when I see something that feels so different, it excites my spirit.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Kind of, I think, probably taking a very, very, very left turn is the jaunt back to aughts teen sex comedies. Though, honestly, I like a good palate cleanser. This sounds like a good palate cleanser from the heaviness I just talked about.
So I did tweet about this, so people probably know what I'm going to talk about. But I was a big fan growing up of like the teen sex comedy. They obviously have not aged the best coming out of like the late 90s, early aughts, like those type of post-American Pie, Road Trip, all that kind of stuff. The jokes a lot of times have not aged very well. And there's, of course, in the early aughts, a lot of homophobia. And I want to like couch this because I have a soft spot in my heart for this little movie called Eurotrip that I haven't watched in a very long time. And I was like, I wonder, is this going to hold up, or am I going to be cringe through the entire thing? And I gotta say, I think this, of any of these early aughts types of sex comedies, this one probably has held up the best. There are still some jokes that, like, but they don't feel malicious in this one. Like, there are some jokes at the expense of, like, other cultures, particularly Italians. There's some jokes, again, like, about uncomfortable homosexuality kind of stuff.
The excusey stuff is what...
The miscusi, yes.
Yeah, that is, like, the only thing I know about that movie.
Which, again, he is played by Fred Armisen. In this great
role, it is Fred Armisen. Okay.
Yes, and Kate is asking, is that the Scotty doesn't know? And yes, it sure is. Scotty doesn't know that Fiona and me. Yeah. It is the best fictional song ever. It is probably one of the best cameos ever, with Matt Damon as a punk bald, like shaved punk, singing about how he is sleeping with Fiona, who is the main character's girlfriend, behind his back, and how he thinks she's going to church, but she's down on her knees, but she's not at like it's a very
God, I remember this.
And it's a very funny song, and the song continues. What I love about this movie is that the song continues throughout the film as they go to all these different European countries in different like styles and languages. And so it's like this song has like taken on a life of its own throughout the entire movie. And It's about this high school student named Scotty who's been chatting with this person online, who he thinks is named Mike, and he has a girlfriend named Fiona who, after they graduate, breaks up with him and tells him that she's been cheating on him. And he gets really drunk at a graduation party, comes home, and Mike has emailed him saying, apologizing for his girlfriend dumping him, but that now that they're not together, maybe they can hang out, and Mike can come visit him. And this is prefaced before this is Scotty's best friend telling him, this person is probably a creep and just wants to like chain you in his sex dungeon. So he
yes.
freaks out and he tells Mike to go fuck himself or whatever. And then the next morning his brother tells him, that's not Mike, that's Mika. That's a traditional German name for a woman. And so then he goes on this quest to go win her back and, fly to Berlin and tell her that he apologizes, because she's of course gorgeous. And it just follows their adventures across Europe, and it's there is a lot of humor in it that has not aged very well, but I still think it is a very funny movie and pretty wholesome for like that kind of movie of that decade. And here's the surprising thing. It is written and directed by a bunch of, well, men, but a bunch of men who would go on to create Barry, Silicon Valley, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Veep.
Oh shit! Seinfeld. Okay.
So it has there's a lot of more like I hate to say sophisticated humor, but like in terms of what those types of movies were giving us, there was a lot of I think there's a little bit more elevation to it. And so, yes, watching it in 2023 is like there's moments that are definitely very cringe. It's also one of the only sex comedies from that era I remember that has like a buffet of penises, because they go to a nude beach thinking that they're going to see a bunch of naked women, and it's just a bunch of dude hanging dong, and it's just like a dick buffet just on the beach.
Do you hear her?
I do. So
why
sweet.
Is she doing this? Sorry. She wants to share her opinions. Are you singing Scotty Doesn't Know?
Scotty Doesn't Know.
What's your favorite teen sex comedy? American Pie? You sick bitch. Anyway.
So I revisited it. I do think in terms of that type of comedy from that era, I think it's held up. And even like the jokes that are a little uncomfortable, I don't think are as malicious in this as any other one. There's like this moment that's almost played for a joke where Scotty tells, after he's found out that Mike is Mika, he's telling his best friend, he's like, I think I'm in love with Mike. And he's like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. I'm happy that you feel comfortable coming out to me. And it's played like that, but it's very wholesome as a joke, as opposed to like,
yeah, it's not like I knew you were gay or something. Right. Yeah, it was more like, oh, I'm here for you. Like I see what you mean. Like they go for like the silly joke, but they don't make it like mean spirited. They don't make it mean spirit. It's not mean spirited at all, and like hateful.
Which is a difference than a lot of the sex comedies from that era. When you look back at them, they can be very mean. And I do.
You think?
And I don't get that from this movie. And again, Tony mentioned, it has our queen Michelle Trachtenberg in it. She's in it. She's great. Scott Mecklowitz, who is this relatively, I think, unknown actor, but he played Scotty, and I had such a huge crush on him growing up. Like not growing up, like in my 20s. He just was a very handsome lad.
I need to see this, because I don't know why I never saw this one. I think it came out, I was just young enough to like not be able to see it, and then like didn't really care to watch it later when I was like old enough to watch it. But I knew about it because my friends had watched it, and I knew the Nick Scoozy part and the Scotty Doesn't Know. Mm-hmm. That's all I knew about it, and I actually haven't seen it. But now I kind of want to watch it.
I think it's fun for
Like,
that type of
sometimes you just
movie.
want to watch, like, kind of a dumb, fun, entertaining movie. I don't need it to be PC. You know what I mean? Like, I can
Oh,
appreciate a 2004 sex comedy from the
uh-huh.
United States of America for exactly what it is. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
Like again,
that's
the
fine.
the the non-PC part of it, there is a moment where they end up at the Vatican, and the best friend is wearing the Pope's hat, and
They light it on fire and he's
gets lit on
dancing.
fire.
I'm
He's
like, you're
like,
on fire.
the hat's on fire. He's like, we don't need no water. Let that motherfucker burn. And so it's like, I don't
That's
think.
right. I remember that. Okay, everything is coming back to me of like the trailer and like everything. Like,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I kind of love it. Again, like that's kind of incredible to me
Yeah,
in terms of humor. It sounds like it's like definitely 2004 humor, but not as egregious as
absolutely.
so many other
No,
movies were. Which I like
no.
it. I respect that. It makes it feel a little bit more timeless than like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're just going to call someone the F slur for like 30 minutes.
Right.
Cool.
And I was really surprised that from what I remember, again, I was watching this as I was falling asleep on Saturday night. But I was like, I don't think the F slur is used at all in this movie, which again, for that time period,
Look
feels,
how easy it was, everybody. Tony is telling me I need to watch Feast then.
oh boy. Yeah. Fe-
Did we talked
Feast.
about that recently, didn't
We
we?
did, yeah. It's a wild ass movie that mixes definitely, yes,
Oh,
it is the
Monster
Monster Come.
Come. I'm a self-proclaimed monster fucker, so I guess that is kind of interesting.
That is definitely a movie that takes like practical monsters. I think it was the first Project Greenlight movie, that like series on HBO that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck hosted, and they got like a filmmaker and like made a series about it. I believe it was that first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's
I
a
want to
wild
get
trip.
really stoned and watch this movie.
Oh, this is definitely a movie in which you would want to do that, and it's a wild time. It is very PC. Yes, every fluid imaginable is in it. That is
Very
also
PC
true.
or very
Very
un-PC?
un-PC. Un-PC.
Okay. I was
Sorry.
like, oh, very PC.
And yes, every fluid imaginable is in that movie. That movie surprised
Wow.
me. So that was Eurotrip and Feast. uh, I want to go back to this queer folk horror because those are two things that I love to hear.
Okay, so this is the latest film from Monster Makeup LLC, who did Drop Dead Drop Death Drop Gorgeous. So it's Michael J. Ahern, Brandon Perez Sanchez. There we go. Got it. And then also there's another director, Ryan Miller. And I have not seen Death Drop Gorgeous, don't tell anyone. But this is their new film, Saint Drogo. I got a screener from them. They've been doing the festival circuit. And I was really surprised by this one. It's very much like low budget filmmaking. Everyone who like is directing and making it is like doing everything else. So the acting is like not the strongest part of the movie. But with Saint Drogo, like okay, so let me just like give you the premise. Saint Drogo takes place where it's all gay men. This couple is together, their relationship is kind of falling apart, and one of the partners, Caleb, is like his ex has gone missing and he wants to know like what's going on. So he went missing. Last time we heard from him, he was in Provincetown, Rhode Island. And so Caleb and his boyfriend go to Provincetown to try to find Caleb. And what ends up happening is like very Eyes Wide Shut meets cosmic horror.
Okay.
And so I really like a lot of things about it. Like I really like the story about a queer couple, like a gay couple having these relationship problems. And again, like showing gay people having normal lives and like going through bad relationships and relationships that just fall apart because over time you guys change and what you want changes. And so this movie very much like grounds itself in this like very realistic relationship and not wanting to and like showing the nuances of a gay relationship in a way that we don't see. There's a lot of gay sex. There's roadside gay blowjobs. There's like threesomes and lots of gay sex, which is awesome. And there's some like the makeup in this movie. It's like very like a lot of final act stuff. And it does feel very slow, but like the fucking makeup they do in this movie is so good. Like it's so fucking cool how they shoot like the third act of this movie and the visuals that they create. They have a really good eye for visuals, and like they're Monster Makeup LLC, like they know how to do effects makeup. They really are creating some really crazy shit. Again, I haven't seen Death Drop Gorgeous, but this is my first one of theirs that I saw, and like yeah, it's very much a low budget horror movie, but like that's like rough around the edges, but like I'm really impressed by what they're able to create with like $20,000, however many $1,000, like almost nothing. And to be able to craft something like this that is like very like, unabashedly queer, is like pushing some boundaries in terms of like sexuality on screen and also creating like really fascinating narratives. I think it's really good. And I definitely understand like complaints about it, but I think it's like, I think if like once this group gets like real budgets and can work with like real like professional actors, I really think they're gonna make some cool shit. And I just need someone to take a chance on them because like they're really, really talented.
I was not the biggest fan of Death Drop Gorgeous, but I definitely agree with what you just said. I think that they have so much ambition. I think their ambition sort of outpaces what they can probably do with the funding that they have. And I do wish that someone would give them a shot with that, because yes, I do think a lot, my problems with Death Drop Gorgeous was this big ambition and not quite hitting the mark in terms of fully doing that. I thought that the trailers and the teasers that I'd seen of St. Drogo made it look really like a step up in terms of the production value and like the cinematography, at least in those trailers. It looked a lot better than they did with Death Drop. So it sounds like they're progressing forward, and I'm really excited to see that. I've not seen St. Drogo yet, but I'm curious about it.
I think they definitely have learned a lot. And they're definitely, like, this one is much more serious and much more, like, creepy. And I really liked it. It's still on its festival circuit. I'm hoping it gets, because Death Drop Gorgeous is on Shudder. So hopefully St. Drogo will get a release from someone. Because, again, like, it's just, if you can look past some of the micro-budget horror stuff, like, it really is great. It's one of those movies that it's like, this is why I love horror movies and like why there are so many cool people out there making really cool shit and like approaching all of their like budgetary challenges head on and doing some really cool stuff. So I just like hope they continue to like grow in terms of what they're able to do. Cause they're all just like all cool gay filmmakers who like love scary shit. Like Brandon and I DM about cryptids. He's got a cryptid sleeve. Like they're just like fucking cool weirdos and it's great and I love it. And I mean that was positive. Anyway, Absolutely. Just a lot of gay stuff recently, and I'm very happy about it. It's really cool to be able to have so much access to more queer stuff. And I know it's still really low, but like, it's cool.
It really is. I completely agree. Yay for gay, as Tony says.
Yay for gay. Okay, anyway, off of my like queer folk horror soapbox, Nightmare at Sea, and it's not about the submarine. I'm sorry, it's not funny. The submarine is not funny, but I had to address the elephant in the room. Okay. And now I got that out of my system. I can't stop thinking about the submarine news. I cannot get it out of my fucking brain.
I can't either.
It's like, disgusting. I don't know why. Just brain worms.
Well, and it was so weird that you and I both read Our Wives Under the Sea, which has a very similar, unfortunately, premise to the start of what happened in real life.
I know. It's not funny, but it's like...
It's just very weird.
It's like, I want to share this on the internet, but it's very insensitive right now. But it's like the exact scenario that happened. Not the exact, but like a very similar scenario in this book. And I'm like, if they come back, we're doomed. Not actually doomed, but like... Anyway, another Nightmare at Sea.
Nightmare at Sea.
Okay, have you continued your aquatic horror reading journey?
Boy, have I.
Yay! I can't wait to hear.
Last week on was it last week, I think, on Twitter, I tweeted, it was after I'd finished reading Our Wives Under the Sea, and I was like, I am pumped. I need some more aquatic horror stuff. And so I put a tweet. It went a little, it's not viral, but it did reach a lot of people that don't follow me, and I got a lot of great suggestions for movies and books to add to my list. I ordered a whole bunch of books, but then there was this
Oh
one
no.
that someone had responded that is not out yet, but they're really excited for it, and they can't wait to hear, or they can't wait for it to come out because they've seen a lot of really good reviews for it. And I went out on NetGalley and I was like, I wonder if it's available, and it was. And so I downloaded it, and I read in two sittings. I read Whalefall.
Oh, fuck yes!
Which,
I've heard such good things about this book.
Which is about a 17-year-old teen named Jay, whose father, I think it was like a year before, the timeline is a little off for me, but I think it was a year before, he was diagnosed with cancer. His father was like a big to-do in the diving scene in Monterey Bay, and when he found out he had cancer, he basically commits suicide in the sea and has his friend take him out there on a boat, and then filled his pockets and jumped overboard. And his remains were never found.
Okay.
And so that's sort of
casual shit.
Yes. And so that's sort of the start. And the thing is that like we start to see Jay as he is going to the beach, and we're starting to like piece together why. And he is going there with his diving equipment. He used to be a diver. His dad used to teach him. The town, him and his father had a falling out, and the town sort of looks down on him as the kid that abandoned his father because he spent the last year of his life out of the house. He like left the house after an altercation and has been couch surfing and staying with friends for a year while he's finishing school because he didn't want to go back home. And so there's a lot of like unresolved tension and unresolved feelings for his father, complex and complicated feelings, as we discover as the book continues. And so he goes out to sea, look to get his father's remains because he knows the coordinates.
Oh,
he knows the coordinates of where his father had committed suicide and jumped overboard because his father's friend had taken him out there, and his father's friend knew where they were. And so he knows roughly where those remains are. And so he goes out there to go try to find them. And as he is searching underwater with his diving kit, he comes across a chasm that he starts to like, I wonder if the body went down there, and he's like thinking about how there's pressure and stuff. So he like starts to go down a little bit. He's like, I'm just going to do a little bit of a search and see if he can find it. He encounters a giant squid, which is surprising coming out of where it's at because he's not at a depth that they're typically at. The squid seems to be moving quickly, and he ends up getting caught up in its tentacles as a giant sperm whale has been chasing the squid and ends up eating both the squid and Jay. And Jay ends up in the whale's first of 4 stomachs, stuck with an hour of air left in the belly of a literal whale.
No, I don't like that at all.
And what follows
Of course I requested on NetGalley. Of course I did. Why wouldn't I?
So what follows is a very intense struggle with him trying to figure out how to get out of the whale. There is a lot of methane in there, and he has, again, an hour on his tank, but he ends up starting to hallucinate a little bit. And so what happens is we get him dealing with unresolved trauma with his family, with the story moving back in time and forward in time to show different events in Jay's life with his father, and sort of creating this very patchwork mosaic of his very complicated relationship with his overbearing and very kind of mean father who has kind of put him down. And there's this moment where he says, because he's like not a very quote unquote masculine guy, and so there's like this idea that his father, who is like this very manly man, has been putting him down. And it's just, there's a lot of things in here that, even though I don't necessarily think there are queer vibes with it, even though the kid at one point says, I don't think I'm gay, but like he's never really found a girl that he likes. So there's a little nugget of that, but there's definitely, even if you take that out, there's definitely like a feeling of that a lot of queer men have growing up under their father when they don't meet necessarily their father's expectations of what they wanted for a son to pass down a lineage to. And so so he's battling with both being stuck in this very uncomfortable situation while also trying to exorcise demons and come to some kind of feeling of resolution with the amounts of guilt and anger and horror that his father left him. And so it's a very intense book. The way it's written is there's no real chapters. There's a PSI on the top that is like
cool.
counting down
cool.
of how much air he has.
Okay.
And then the other chapters aren't chapters. It has like 2005 and it has like an event, or it'll go to 2015 and it has an event. And so we see all these little vignettes that are in there. And the way that Daniel Kraus, who's the writer, the way he kind of moves in from them, it's a book that like you don't want to put down reading. And so while it's like 380 or some like pages, there's a couple pages, there's some chapters that are literally a couple words. And so you're constantly getting this like feeling of page turning that you just like, I just got to keep reading. And it grabs you. It grabbed me, and I just did not want to put it down. So I finished it in 2 settings, and I probably could have finished in 1, but it was so late when I started it. I was so tired. But it is really good. It comes out in August, and boy, did I love this. I love this book. I love this book so fucking much.
Oh, he wrote The Shape of Water.
He did. He wrote The Shape of Water with Guillermo del Toro. He also wrote with filmmaker George A. Romero, The Living Dead. He co-authored that with George Romero. I think George Romero passed away in the middle of writing, of them making it, I think is what I'm trying to remember. But yeah, this made me want to go check out his other stuff, and I didn't even realize when I started reading it that he had done all these other things. But yeah.
Wow.
Fantastic
Fuck
read.
Okay. Cool.
That
sounds
in August,
wild.
I highly recommend it. It's very intense. And he is
just-
not
I
afraid
did-
of putting
I
his
did-
character through trauma. Like
I did just request it on NetGalley.
Hell yeah.
Oh, but it's fucked up. Like, he fucks him up.
Oh my god, does he fuck him up?
We keep multiple. Tony and Kate have talked about how this is like the Borderlands. Yes, it is. Pinocchio meets the Borderlands, said Kate, which I think is very apt.
And Tony also said he's standing by my statement that we need to get rid of the ocean. The ocean is horrifying, and I love it.
Is it like any kind of like religious allegory with like Jonah and the whale kind of situation?
No, I was wondering if there would be, and I don't remember picking up any kind of religious. Like, obviously, there's the idea of Jonah and the whale, obviously, and as Kate says also in our chat, Pinocchio meets Borderlands. Yes, there is like that kind of nugget of truth. And what I really enjoyed is at the very end of the book, he kind of talks a little bit about the biologist and the marine biologist and all these people that he went to go talk to try to figure out what they can do, or how this would unfold in real life. So there's a lot of really interesting things in here, and I love this. I love this book so fucking much.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Ooh, really, I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you think.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I've just been like reading up a fucking storm recently, so I'm like, I want all of the recommendations.
This one is really good.
Cool.
Let's finally swing really far away and talk about the only Marvel thing MB cares about.
Yes, so I finally saw Spider-Man. Oh shit, the new Spiderverse movie. I can never remember their fuck. I care about them, but I like don't like totally understand. Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse. Thank you, Kate. So I saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in theaters. I don't care about Marvel, but the animated Spider-Man movies are fucking incredible. There are pieces of fucking artwork. And this one is even more... Have you seen Across the Spider-Verse,
No,
Terry?
I have not. I've seen the trailer for it. I'm very excited to see it. It looks gorgeous.
So this one is even prettier. They're playing a lot more... Like, I think it's a lot prettier, and I think you can really see like the confidence that they built in the animation, which is so wild because like the first one was so beautiful with so many like its animation styles, but here like they really go fucking crazy with everything, and like they're not afraid to play with abstract backgrounds now. Like where there's like moments where like Gwen Stacy is kind of a big like emotional figure in this one with like a confrontation with her dad, and they play a lot with like abstract backgrounds and like colors with these things rather than having to have like a static background. And so they're definitely experimenting more with form, which I really,
Yeah.
really love in this one. But we pick up, Gwen is back in her universe and she is very sad. And through means I won't spoil, she ends up reuniting with our boy Miles, who is Spider-Man. He is continuing to live his life as an almost 16-year-old kid, trying to balance saving the world and doing his homework. And essentially, when Gwen comes back, he realizes that there are Spider-Mans all across the universe. And there is a lot of things that deal with being Spider-Man that aren't great. And so he learns all about this, and also there's a new nemesis called the Spot, who can like rip holes in like time space, and it is very complicated, but not hard to follow, like most Marvel movies are. At least I thought so. Oscar Isaac voices a hot new Spider-Man with a big old booty. I know everyone's been thirsting after this character,
As they should.
As they should. But I really loved it. Yeah, they really expanded out. Like, again, like, the scope is even bigger this time. And they're definitely leading into, like, the third movie that I think they already announced. Beyond the Spider-Verse, I think, is the next one. Because it was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, crossed, and it's like, okay, Jesus Christ. I can't remember shit. But I love this, too, because, like, you don't have to really know anything about any other Marvel stuff. Like, you can just enjoy this. So, this is a very good sequel. It's very beautiful. It is very long. It's like almost 2.5 hours long.
Holy crap, that's long for animation. That's great.
Yeah, 2.5. It's an hour and 40 minutes. So yeah, it's very good. There's a lot of stuff going on. Gwen Stacy is definitely trans. I will not hear any other words about that on the internet.
So when I haven't seen this, but I've seen the trailer for it, or multiple trailers for it, and all I can think of when I see them is there's this moment in Kimmy Schmidt where Titus is auditioning for the Spider-Man musical, Spider-Man 2, Too Many Spider-Man, with the number 2, too many. And he sings a song about, because like in the trailer there's this moment where it looks like all the Spider-Men are chasing after Miles, and all I can think about is, and I will crush that Spider-Man, and then that other Spider-Man, then all the Spider-Men, till I am the Spider-Man.
Well,
And that
really,
is what I think
you
of.
may have that. It's pretty applicable here. Not like word for word, but it's applicable. Yeah.
And so that's all I could think of whenever I saw the trailer, is I would just start singing that in my head. Hey, it was
But
not a
yes.
30 Rock joke, but it is still a Tina Fey created joke, so.
But yeah, highly recommend if you're into those movies. And honestly, like, you don't have to be a superhero movie person to like these movies. They're really good, and they are so full of heart and are so sweet and just like wholesome movies. But that about does it.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably start up with doing another series on Little Cuts back in July, towards like after maybe the 4th, because I'm still playing Diablo like a motherfucker. And
Okay, I would say the funniest thing that happened today.
okay.
Steve goes out of nowhere, like in the middle of the workday. Steve turns to me and goes, "Terry's in trouble." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I heard Final Fantasy 16 is really good."
Uh-huh. Yeah, and that's the other that's the other. This is what I was about ready to lead to.
It was so funny. I was so excited to tell you because Steve was like,
This is what I was leaning
Fuck.
towards, because I am playing a lot of Diablo, and then you better believe that I have had Final Fantasy 16 pre-ordered for a minute. And
10 years.
today at work, I just kept waiting because I knew that the embargo was going to be up at 9 a.m. my time, and I just kept waiting. And I spent, don't listen to this work folk, I spent a good, for like 30 minutes or so, going from review to review and just soaking in what everyone is saying about this game. I'm so fucking excited for it, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I am going to be playing the shit out of that over the next 2 weeks, so...
Steve just texted me, "Heard you talking shit." Yeah, yeah, it was very funny. It looks good. So yeah.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Like, I even
Steve
downloaded
played
the
the
demo.
Steve
No.
played yeah.
I'm not.
Steve
I'm
played
not going to do
Steve
that.
played the demo, and he was like, "Huh, this is different. You can
Yeah.
tell it's different." I don't really
Yeah.
know anything about Final Fantasy, but I'm taking his word, Steve's word, as he is also a Final Fantasy nerd.
It is the video game equivalent of the Alien franchise for me and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Like, Final Fantasy has kind of defined my entire life. Like, I have followed it
Yeah.
from the very first Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy, and then Final Fantasy 2, which is actually Final Fantasy 4. Regardless, I have been following it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And it's my favorite, one of my favorite franchises.
Through thick
so.
and thin, you have followed it.
Oh, yes, and Tony says remembers playing Final Fantasy X when he was 12, and he remembers having a crush on Waka, and Waka was hot. Absolutely. Absolutely. And oh my god, I watched a video review of this game, and everyone in this game is so fucking hot. I'm just like, holy cow.
Incredible.
But anyway, so we'll be picking up the Little Cut series back in July, but until then... Oh boy, Mary Beth, who did we talk with for Monday's episode?
So on Monday, we're chatting with filmmaker Chrissy Fox. She's the co-writer and actor behind Bury the Bride and the recently announced Little Bites. But the reason why it is very triggering is because she brought with her Arachnophobia, a film that we all know has terrified Terry, and it was the first movie that he talked about on the podcast, and we revisited it with her because we haven't done it with a guest. And wow, the two of them are so fucking scared of spiders. It's like kind of incredible. This entire episode is like very much just them talking about spiders and how much scared they are of spiders. It's great. It's really good.
That like she and I are in a spider soulmate in a very bizarre way. Yes, kindred spirits.
It's very weird.
Very weird and similar spider stories.
It's fucking weird.
And I'm going to tell you right now, she brought a story that made me leave the room.
Yeah. Can confirm that did in fact.
I literally got up and I left the room. So
Yep.
Be ready. Monday is a lot.
It's very good. It's quite incredible. I do say so myself.
It was a very fun episode. And I am so glad that I can cross off this movie and never have to fucking watch it ever fucking again. Ever.
Yeah. Yeah, you were pretty definitive about how you will never ever watch this movie again. So, fair enough.
So that's a little bit of a tease for what you're going to experience Monday. It is quite an episode, I have to say.
Very excited. I know. Oh, yes, Tony, we're aware there's a remake. We talk about that,
too. We talk about that, too.
All right, listeners, you've heard from us. Yes, it is Christopher Landon Gate. Listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. Did you watch something or read something that we talked about this week and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for what our next series should be? You can let us know by sending an email to scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm McGailey Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter @ScarredPodcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And if you want to help support us, join us through Patreon. Right after we're done with this episode, we're going to be finally recording our spoiler cast for Scream 6. And there's that new Fresh Wounds out. And we got a lot of content and a lot of interesting things coming your way. So please help support us.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there. But most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.